No one's been more critical than I have been of the Governor of the Reserve Bank, Philip Lowe. He was... Oh, have a look at that, will you? You see, this is the point. There is this bloke at a press conference. There's the Aboriginal flag. And, well, you can see a bit of the Australian flag, but it has equivalence with the Australian flag. Oh, I'll tell you what. Is this going to keep going? Anyway, back to this Philip Lowe. He was way behind the 8 ball on raising interest rates much earlier, which would have lessened the pain much later. And he should never have indirectly prospered the argument that this free money could go on forever. However, we can't blame the Reserve Bank governor entirely for the inflation and interest rate problems we now face. The problem resides, as it always tends to in this country, and I made this point with Mark Latham earlier, in the national capital. You see, during the so-called coronavirus hysteria, Australia printed $800 billion of money. Why? Well, the Morrison government spent hundreds of billions on lockdowns, JobKeeper, bailouts for fat cat corporates and handouts for green energy schemes, all based on the so-called health advice of the Ethiopian communist who runs the World Health Organization. What's the issue? Well, to finance this spending that Australia couldn't afford, the Reserve Bank had to print money. The consequence? Inflation. It's simple. Simple economics. When you print money to finance government spending, are you listening, Dominic Perrottet and Matt Keane? Spending that we can't afford, inflation rises. When more money is chasing the same amount of goods, prices must go up. It's not rocket science. But our politicians clearly didn't see what was to come, rampant inflation. But of course they're all gone now. Morrison, Frydenberg, they're all left. We're left to deal with the mess. The same thing's happened on the supply side. And again, Mark Latham and I talked about this. Simple economics shows that when you reduce the supply of power, fuel, water, fertiliser, gas or land, prices go up. That's exactly what our politicians have done. Over the last 15 years, Australia has not built a new coal-fired power plant. Instead, we've ummed and ahed about nuclear and gas while building useless solar and wind farms that don't produce cheap, stable and reliable power. As a result, wholesale power prices for manufacturers have gone up by between 2 and 10 times, depending on what month it is, and household energy bills, as you know, have gone through the roof. The same goes for water and fertiliser. Food prices have gone up because we haven't built a significant dam in decades. They've also gone up because we import 95% of our urea. It's the key ingredient in fertiliser. But the same goes for fuel. We import practically all our petrol and diesel. We can't lower prices because we are held captive by foreign producers. Land's no different. Why are rents and house prices so high? Green state governments and councils won't allow new greenfield property development while the federal government brings in hundreds of thousands of new immigrants every year. All the state governments and councils want to do is lock up more land as national parks and let vermin and fuel build up, a coming ecological disaster that they'll no doubt blame on climate change and our coal miners. If this isn't madness, what is? But it's why we found ourselves in this economic situation. We desperately need new leadership in this country before the damage is too significant to reverse.